Hey everybody, welcome to another Corporate Gamer podcast. My name is Corporate Gamer. This is episode 3, recorded on March 15th, 2017. This is called Snow Day. That's pretty relevant because today we had a ton of snowfall on Montreal, 40 centimeters, and for those on the metric system, not on the metric system, that's roughly 16 inches of snow. The city was pretty much shut down today. Which is funny. I'm going to sound like my parents here, but when I was a kid, my elementary and high school would never close for snow days. At least my high school wouldn't. I think it could be the apocalypse outside and it wouldn't close. And then this morning, all high schools on the island of Montreal, all the elementary schools, all the universities, all the colleges, daycares, they were all closed today. Except for my work, which was one of the few that braved through the storm to go to work. I can't really complain because I live like 5-10 minutes away from the actual metro or subway. So it takes me around half an hour to get to work. But for those that had their cars, which were really, really covered, it was a pain in the butt. And I think that... it should have been a snow day. I should have stayed home, to be quite honest. I think I could have used the day to catch up on my gaming. I think most people would. So in the last week, I watched a few things on Netflix. One of them was the Trevor Noah stand-up, Afraid of the Dark. I found it pretty good. I'm starting to like his stand-up a lot more than I kind of like Russell Peters. It's similar in a sense that, it's racial based and and so on and so forth. But I just like the delivery better, and I just find that Russell Peters, it's kind of getting stale. Kind of would have to change his shtick a little bit. Trevor Noah, just his delivery, he's very natural. He's very fluid in his delivery, and I found it really, really funny. There were parts that were really cool. There's a part in there where he imitates how he taught Barack Obama how to speak in public, and he goes through this whole imitation of both of them, and it's really, really awesome. So if you guys are on Netflix and you're looking for something lighthearted to watch, and you don't mind and you like The Daily Show, this is really up your alley. And I think you'd like it. I personally liked it. So give it a try. In the last week, I played a couple of games. One of them is an old retro game called Commander Keen, which is an old platformer on PC that I bought on Steam for, I think it was $5-6. It wasn't that expensive. And you get like the first three, I think you get the first 3 games, I believe, with all the episodes. And it's really cool. I wanted to stream it last week, but for whatever reason, I updated my OBS last week and it just kept crashing. So I have to figure out what's happening with that. But other than that, it's a really fun game. I really liked it. I used to love it when I was a kid. It gets pretty challenging, but I mean, it's a very, it's an 8-bit type of game. It's really easy. It's not that hard. It can get hard at parts. I do get that, but it's not compared to other platformers like Ninja Gaiden on NES. It's nothing compared to that. But it gave me years of enjoyment, so I wanted to get back into it, so I did. And I also last week I saw the trailer for the new Quake game that they were thinking of coming out with, and it looked so freaking awesome that I just got back into the last Doom that came out. I already had finished the game, and I just wanted to play something that was fast-paced, that I could shoot somebody's head off, and, Doom is available. I think it went down in price. I think it went from $79.99 to $59.99 Canadian. I'm sure you can get it cheaper somewhere else. But it's really worth the pickup. I mean, it's one of the few games where I would say that it was worth the full price of admission. I really, really liked the game, and I think it's one of the few games that I'm going to be going back on over and over again. I bought it on Xbox One, but in my heart, Doom, Quake, Heretic, if ever they decide to do it. Anything from ID Software, to me, they're PC games, and they should be played on PC. I just don't have a PC that's good enough to play those games. And I don't want to invest in a power PC to just play a few games. So I just bought it on my Xbox One, and it's cheaper that way in the long run. So yeah, I played Doom. I played Doom again, and I'm really, really digging it. So yeah, so that's what I did in the last week. So let's go into the stories of the week, starting with John Carmack ZeniMax. You may know or may not know, John Carmack started off at ID Software. He's one of the co-founders of ID Software, and he was part in creation of Doom, Heretic, Hexen, and so on. So he had a trial a few months back, and I think it finished last month, where ZeniMax sued him for intellectual property for stealing, code and so on and so forth. John Carmack lost that trial. ZeniMax won. It was a huge settlement, not settlement, but it was a huge win for ZeniMax. And so now John Carmack is going after ZeniMax and wants roughly $22.5 million, and that he's claiming that he deserves since ZeniMax bought ID Software back in 2009. To me, it's just petty at this point. He didn't appeal the last trial, which leads me to believe that they don't have anything new, and which means that he wouldn't win anything. So this is just a way of getting back at ZeniMax and saying, hey, I earned this money and you owe me. Will it work? I don't have many details on what it actually, the information that he has. We'll let the courts decide. But I don't think that it's something that's going to be really, that's going to work in his favor. Kind of sucks because John Carmack was, he's one of the originators of PC first-person shooters, along with Duke Nukem and that gang of PC games back in the 90s. It's a real shame, but I think this has tarnished his reputation a little bit, and I'm not sure how long he's going to be staying at Oculus as a chief technical officer, but I hope, wish him the best, and we'll see how that goes. But I don't think it's looking very good for him at this point. All right, next on the list, GDC Conference finished last week. It's the Game Developers Conference, which, in case those of you who don't know, it's one of those conferences where it groups hundreds, if not thousands, of different developers and indie developers from across the world, and it's kind of like a place to network and learn about what developers think the future is going to be. What's the future of gaming? What's coming in the pipe? What are people working on? And, I haven't delved into the big, all the stories about GDC and so on and so forth. I honestly just didn't have time. But one of the themes that did come up to me, or did pop up to me very often, is the fact that it seems developers think that VR is going to be a big thing in the future. I think that the jury is still out on that one. I'm not sure if VR is there yet. And let me explain. Number one, the price tag. Although the price tag has been dramatically reduced from what it was years ago. Before it used to be a couple of $1,000s just to get like something that would kind of resemble VR. To be quite honest, everyone that's tried the VR, the Oculus, the HTC Vive, and so on and so forth, they like it, and they find it looks really good. But to me, until you remove that headset and you have something else that's more lightweight, it's not going to go anywhere. And although PlayStation has been going on record saying, hey, we sold 1 million of these and so on and so forth, which is a lot more than I thought it would have been. I would have thought that the best case scenario would have been about 500,000. I don't know if that's sold or shipped, but in any case, it's still a pretty substantial amount of units that they had. But it's a little expensive when you consider that you have to buy a PS4, or for an HTC Vive, you have to buy a laptop that's pretty powerful. The price comes into play, and a lot of people don't have a ton of money laying around just to buy unless you're filthy rich. I don't think it's something that's going to happen. So I think it's not quite there yet, but it's getting there. Prices are just going to keep going down as technology evolves, and that's like any technology. I think the ideal goal for VR is to eventually have, I know Microsoft has the HoloLens, which is not really for consumer use. I think it's more for specialty scenarios could use HoloLens, but I don't think there's ever going to be a real full game or platform on HoloLens. The ideal thing at the end is going back to Star Trek, is the holodeck. Going into a room and saying, hey, I want 1980s New York City, Madison Square Garden. I want to watch Hulk Hogan versus, Bruno Sammartino. And you have that match in front of you and you're in the stands and so on and so forth. That, I think, it would be the ideal. Are we there yet? Hell no. We're not even close to that. We've toyed with the idea. We think that we may be able to resemble something that comes close to an idea of that, but we're not even close to being there yet. And I think that until that thought or that the technology goes into that direction, I don't think it's going to be as successful as people think it is. That's on the technology and the hardware part. The other part also that makes it difficult to sell it is because I don't think there's a lot of good games on VR. I don't own a VR, so I can't really personally say. But a lot of people that are online and a lot of gaming podcasts I listen to, a lot of them are telling me, well, yeah, most of the time it's the VR version of it is kind of like a throw-in, or it seems like a big demo reel for the VR. It doesn't feel like it's a full complete game. And until they actually have games that are going to be developed fully immersed and only for VR, and you can only get that experience in a VR experience, and it's a full-fledged game, I think it's a hard sell. And it may be something like 5, 10 years, maybe 15 years until we actually ramp up to the next evolution of VR. But I don't think we're there right now, and I don't think investing in that part of the technology is going to bring you a lot of money at this point. And I think it's going to be more of those indie games, and all you need is 1 or 2 games that really are impressive and they're really good, and they're going to start selling units. But until you have those, and I don't see a lot of developer investments in there doing those things, I don't think it's going to really pick up that much. So that's my thought on that. Next on the list, who can actually have a week where you cannot talk about the Switch, especially after it got released, a week ago. Nintendo came out saying there's no apps on the Switch right now, but it's something that's going to come in the future. Which we hoped they would have done, but at least now it's official. They didn't name and what kind of apps or whatever. They're just saying non-gaming apps are going to be available eventually on the system, and I have a hard time justifying the price for just paying a premium for Nintendo games, because essentially that's all the Switch is right now. It's just a Nintendo. It's just a machine that you're paying a premium to play certain games, which is merited. I mean, there's a lot of good franchises on Nintendo. They've been piggybacking a lot on those retro games. The Metroids, the Mario Karts, the Super Mario games, the Zelda games, and the Metroids, and so on and so forth. But it's just one of those things where it's really, really difficult to justify the price of a machine when you can't do anything but play games. In today's day and age, consoles today are different than what gaming consoles were 20, 25 years ago. The original NES was perfect for what it was supposed to be doing. It was a game, it just played games, and you plugged it in and you're good to go. Now you have consoles, at least, I'm not saying all the apps in the world. To be honest, a lot of the apps that I have on my Xbox One, I don't give two craps about. They just either crash, they're badly maintained, they're really, really bad. That's besides the point. However, there's a handful of apps that I think are essential for a lot of these systems that are going to be in rooms and living rooms. And you don't want to always switch system to system. A lot of gamers now, a lot more than before, used to have, they have like 2-3 systems. They'll have the Switch, the PS3, or the PS4, and the Xbox One. But there's still people that still have only one console. I have enough money for one console. So if I have a choice of the Xbox One for, let's put it at $350, the PS4 at $350, and I have the Switch at $350. Let's remove the games for a second, because every console has their exclusives. The Xbox One will have the Halos of this world. PS4 is going to have The Last Guardian, let's say. Not the best example, but it's the only one I have on the top of my head. And then the Switch, you have their own games. So, okay, great. They have their own exclusives. However, at the end of the day, when I put on my Xbox, I only have an Xbox One. I have a 360 and so on and so forth, but my main console is an Xbox One. When I open up my Xbox, I can have a few apps that I can... First of all, I can watch my NHL games. I have the NHL app, which works very well. It's very limited in what it actually does, but it streams the games very well, and it does what it's supposed to do. But that's not for everyone, and I get that. It's not a basic app. One of the basic apps that I think all systems should have, it's Netflix. It's just natural. Especially the fact that Nintendo comes out with a handheld, which you can move stuff around, you can move games around. If you can do that with apps, that'd be amazing. You're watching a movie, you want to go to bed, but you don't want to stop watching the movie. You take it on the go, go to bed, and you watch it on the tablet. That to me is awesome. Same thing with YouTube. To me, YouTube is a staple on my Xbox. I watch it all the time. I have my subscriptions, and I let it go. There's some channels I literally just watch for, like Joe Santagato. I watch every week when he comes out with a new video, and so on and so forth. So, and I get to watch it on big screen, So it's not and it's the only way that I watch YouTube on a regular basis. If it'd be strictly on a phone or on a laptop, I wouldn't watch it that often. But because it's on my TV, I choose to watch it very often. So those are just two basic apps that I think were or not needed, but they should have been on launch day on Nintendo. And I know that maybe they were cutting for time and they were trying to make the launch date and so on and so forth, but it's just that should have been on there. Now, the other thing as well is that the Xbox and the PlayStation have space on their hard drives. 256 is not much. 500 is okay. 1 terabyte is the way to go. You can even hook up an external hard drive. But at the base of the Switch, you don't have a ton of space. You have about 32 gigs, which, a fourth of that is space for the OS. So you're kind of stuck with 25, 26 gigs left. And once you're done with that, it doesn't take much to fill up your hard drive. Yeah, you can put a slot in for, an SSD drive for, but, if you're going to get a pretty high uh, SSD for, with a lot of space on it, it starts getting expensive. So out of the box, it doesn't have a lot of space, which is kind of a shame. Um, but the functionality or the possibility of having success there is really, really big. And I think it's something that should have been there on day one. But at least they're confirming that they're going to be releasing non-game apps. I don't know how this is going to work with the limited space they have on the Switch. But hey, we'll see how that goes. I'm personally, I'll say it again, I'm waiting for pretty much Mario Odyssey, or maybe till they throw in a game or something to make it cheaper, because it's not, for me, I can't justify the price right now. And like I said last week, I don't think that would fly very well with the wife. Yeah, that's the Switch and the apps. Next on the list. Next on the list is Xbox Scorpio. So the head of Shadow of War, which is Kevin Stevens, went on record and said, and I quote, "The Xbox Scorpio will be the most powerful console ever created." And to this I say, probably true. Does it really matter? No. Then let me explain. Essentially, you have for every generation, there's always a console that's more powerful than the other, and it's probably the more powerful of the consoles. So you can actually slap that slogan, most powerful console ever. That was the case with the Xbox and the PS2, the 360 and the PS3, and for the Xbox, the original Xbox and the PS2, in theory, the more powerful machine was the Xbox. But in that generation, PS2 is the one that won. Why? Because of the games. Let's move over to the 360 and the PS3. The better console in terms of powerful console was the PS3 with the cell processor when it first came out, with the cell processor and so on and so forth. And the Xbox was known for having a massive amount of issues, including the red ring of death and so on and so forth. And some people had to return their Xbox 3-4 times. But even with that, it still managed to do pretty damn well. At the end of the cycle, the number of games or consoles sold were pretty even keel. But, the Xbox 360 is kind of regarded as the better of the two, at least for that generation. Why? It had a good UI, or a better UI than PS3 at that time. But it comes down to games. And a lot of people loved the games that were on Xbox, especially XBLA. One of my favorite games was Dead Pixels. I still play it to this day. It's amazing. And I would recommend anybody to pick it up. It's for $10, but it's so worth the price. So in that generation, the better console wasn't necessarily better. Let's move to the Xbox One and the PS4. In theory, all things considered, let's go with the Pro and the S. Yeah, the One S. The Pro is slightly more powerful than the One S. However, a lot of people would argue that the One S is slightly better. But in other cases, it would be the PS4 because it has VR and so on and so forth. However, it comes down to games, and it comes down to system, the system UI and how the people interact with the system and so on and so forth. So for the PS4 Pro and the One S, it's still a little young in the cycle to actually still judge. But you can see that the more powerful one is not necessarily the better console. Coming to this declaration from Kevin Stevens, saying that Scorpio will be the most powerful, which is pretty much true. Because at the time when it's going to be released, there's probably not going to be a PS5. There's not going to be a new Switch. So it will be probably the most powerful on the planet, console on the planet. But it'll never compete with a PC, and they'll never be able to compete. And although, Xbox, since the first Xbox, the original Xbox, they kind of have always alluded to the fact that they wanted the PC in your living room. And, the system is a mini PC in your living room, which is kind of true, and it's kind of been true since the PS2 and so on and so forth. However, it's always going to be behind the curve in terms of the power that it has. A PC will always be evolving. You'll always have games that appear better on PC. It's always the way. It pushes hardware, it pushes software, and it's not the console that's going to do that. So as a console, it may be the most powerful console ever, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good. It may give a little bit of more freedom to developers to create something more, creative, and I'm hoping that there's going to be a version of VR available on the Scorpio. Something along the lines of the HTC Vive or so on and so forth, because I think they have, or is it Oculus, that they have like a deal with. They have a deal with one of the two, so I think that's something that would be really awesome. But it's kind of an empty statement. It's kind of stating that, in the summer the trees are going to have green leaves. Yeah, you're kind of stating the obvious. I didn't actually buy a 1S. I don't know if I'm going to buy an Xbox Scorpio, to be honest, if I can still play my games on my original Xbox. The graphics to me have always been secondary. Like, it's nice to see a game that's overwhelmingly beautiful, but at the same time, the gameplay has to be really good. And, same idea as an album, right? You can have the best looking cover art, but if the album sucks, you're not going to buy it, or you're going to return it. Same idea here. You need the software, you need everything, and I'm pretty sure it's the reason why this is making also the headlines, because it's the first announced game for the Scorpio. It's probably going to be scaled down for the other versions of the Xbox One, but it's going to be one that's going to be created for the Scorpio, so it's making headlines. But I just found that line so empty without any meaning. I just wanted to talk about that for a few minutes. Next on the list, transferring PS4 games between systems. So with the PS4 now, since you're able to actually plug in hard drives, you can take your games mobile and bring it to another PS4 and play them there. I don't know how it's actually going to work in terms of the game playing and the if you have to log in as your own user and so on and so forth. But it's pretty cool that you can do that. Just wanted to mention that a little bit quickly for those of you that have PS4. I don't know how much of a usefulness that has, unless you're playing it, you go to a friend's house very often, or because if it's a free game, everybody can download it. If it's a bot game, yeah, I guess you could share it between people, between friends. Not sure how that's going to work, but for me, it wouldn't be very useful. Like, even plugging in an external hard drive is useful for me for my my Xbox One, because I could actually download all my games and I can have them ready on the hard drive. So it's actually really cool. But I don't actually transfer anything. I don't take it and go to somebody's house and transfer my games there. It just doesn't really. I don't have enough. I don't know enough people with an Xbox One. Number one. Number two, they play their own types of games, very often different from my tastes. So yeah, I don't find it very useful, but I'm pretty assured there's somebody out there that would find it pretty useful to have that functionality in there. And last but not least, I wrote an article on roundtable.ca last week. Number of games in one cartridges. So if you remember, back when on the NES, these were considered illegal at the time, where you can have 60 games, 80 games, 120 games, 200 games in one. I have one right now that I bought off eBay for, not eBay, Amazon for roughly $20, and it's 500 games in one. And the reason why it was really cool when I was a kid is because, I went for years I would play only Duck Hunt and Super Mario Brothers because I didn't have enough money to actually buy a new game. I would rent one every so often, but I didn't actually own them. And then for one Christmas, my dad got me a 82 games in one, and my library of games just went from 2 to 84. Don't get me wrong, a lot of the games were not great, were either bad ports or really, really bad games from the Famicom or so on and so forth. But there were some games on there that were really cool, and I got to play a lot of different games like Mappy and Lone Runner. Was it Lone Runner? Load Runner? I think it's Load Runner. Urban Champion, I think that's what it was. Yes, Urban Champion. There's another one. I think they call it Tank 1990 in some of them, but it's Battle City, which is an addictive game that I always loved. Stuff like that. So there's some games that were really good, and then there's some that were really awful. They're really bad ports, or they're really bad concept games that never got out of beta. A lot of them had bugs, like the Super Mario Brothers that were found on those games usually didn't have a splash page with a logo and so on and so forth. They just had player 1, player 2, and then you play. I guess that's how they got away with the legal jumbo. And it reminded me when I actually did the review for my Retrobit Generations, that because of the bugs that were found on those games, I found that it reminded me of those cartridges, and I just decided to write an article on that, on how I remember these games and how good they were and if they're worth picking up. I had a lot of fun playing Tetris on those games. It's the only way I played Tetris, that on Arkanoid. And I played for years on that, and I still have them today. I still have those cartridges, and they still work. But yeah, that was the article on the week, so you can actually read that at roundtable.ca. And that's it for me this week. If you liked what you heard, you can find me on iTunes, on Google Play, and on Soundcloud. You can reach me, you can watch my streaming once I get my OBS fixed. You can watch me on Twitch at Corporate Gamer 9. You can like my Facebook page at Corporate Gamer. My Twitter is Corporate Gamer 9. And if you want to read my articles and my fellow writer articles on roundtable.ca, it's http://roundtable.ca. So thanks for listening. Leave me your comments on how you like the show. If you liked it, you hate it, just say it. It makes you want to scream when you hear my voice. Let me know, and I'll answer you back and as fast as I can. And thanks for listening, guys. All right, ciao.